بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافي مزيدا وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه إن الحمد لله رب العالمين في كل وقت وحين يا رب العالمين يا رب العالمين يا رب العالمين يا لطيف لم يزل لطوف بنا فيما نزل إنك لطيف لم تزل لطوف بنا ومسلمين يا الله اللهم اجعلنا من الصابرين الذين محبون إليك يا رب كريم يا أرحم الراحمين يا أرحم الراحمين يا أرحم الراحمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll be continuing on with lesson 5 from the clarification of noble character, inshallah ta'ala. And today's discussion, inshallah ta'ala, is going to pick up with the concept of patience. Right? We've been talking about patience for a couple of days now. First, exhorting to patience, the significance of it, and then understanding the greatness of patience. And then we spoke about putting patience into practice and the practicality of it within our daily lives, inshallah ta'ala. And now, inshallah ta'ala, today's discussion is going to be about emulating the people of patience. And really what we're going to see, actually, it's maybe to our benefit, I'm not going to be doing maybe not much commentary myself, but we're going to be seeing just a few stories and examples of the beautiful patience of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Some beautiful examples, the beautiful way in which he interacted and conducted himself with those around him, which is something it's not something in which we should look at ourselves and think about how terrible we are, although that may be true. But it's something we could aspire towards. It makes me think, inshallah, the great examples that we're going to see. Makes me think of as a young kid growing up in the 90s, in the early 2000s, makes me think my favorite basketball player used to be Michael Jordan, as was everybody's at that time, pretty much. And there was this concept of being like Mike, right? And he had a lot of commercials, and everybody tried to be like Michael Jordan. And he was a really huge influential figure in the basketball world, and still is to this day. And even though he's pretty much universally regarded as the greatest, right? That there's still this concept and idea of emulating him in his attributes, in the way that he played, and his style, the way that he scored, everything, as if he was the consummate basketball player. It wasn't something where the other basketball players would be like, well, you know what, let me not kind of dribble like he did, let me not hit the turnaround jumper like he did, let me not, dunk or be aggressive as he was, or anything such as that. No. Rather, it was something that people emulated. When greatness is in front of you, you try to emulate it, you try to copy it, you try to take a portion from it so that way you can make it a part of yourself. And as we're talking about donning or clothing ourselves, really, clothing ourselves with noble character, clothing ourselves with beautiful characteristics, and doing so in such a way where we're not creating copies of ourselves that we're trying to aspire to, but rather we're inculcating it into our being and helping it and using it to beautify ourselves. And then invariably we need to look at the example of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who is the consummate, he's not the consummate basketball player, but he's the consummate human being. He is the human being as Allah Azza wa Jal intended for the human being in perfection. Khayr khalqillah, the best of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so it's incumbent upon us not to despair when we see these examples of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but rather, instead of despairing, instead of kind of thinking about how little we are, however we are in comparison, and really, we can't compare, but in comparison, it's something that we should be like Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Aspire to be as Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. not to lose ourselves in the process, in our own game and how we operate, but to take some of the good of what we see, to take it and try to inculcate it within us, trying to make it a part of us. That's what we need, inshallah ta'ala. Something to motivate us, something to aspire to, even if we can never reach those great heights. Just as you talk to any basketball player today, modern NBA player, they'll mention their favorite would be like Michael Jordan or what have you, and they would try to copy his moves or whatever like that. But they know the greatest will stay. Even if they're great themselves, they'll still say, no, the greatest is still Mike. And even if we try to, copy the moves of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, copy his characteristics, copy his behavior, and try to inculcate that into our own and make our own game from it, we still know that he's the greatest sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the greatest amongst the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, inshallah ta'ala, with that in the backdrop, inshallah we'll proceed, inshallah, and then see what we can take from the beautiful character of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and seeing how we can incorporate that into our lives. That's our job for today, inshallah ta'ala, is to see how we can take these examples and use it to motivate us and to aspire us, or to motivate us and to use it as aspiration to propel us forward, and propel us forward to the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bismillah. فقال المؤلف, the author states, patience has been mentioned in the previous chapters. It is one of the foundations of noble character, since any person who wishes to attain any praiseworthy character trait, and then to make it firm and to continue to live by it, has need of it. It is, however, a very rare attribute. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, certainty and resolve to remain patient are amongst the things which you have been given least of. And whoever has been given a portion of these two things need not worry about what he fails to perform of prayer in the night and fasting in the day. In other words, now this is the author continuing after the hadith. In other words, these two qualities make up for any shortcomings in recommended acts of worship and raise a person's station with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we come to understand that patience, in addition to having certainty, yaqeen, certainty of faith, these things that there are rare, okay? That they're very rare for an individual to have. And it's something, so it kind of speaks to a little bit about what we spoke in kind of introducing into this topic for today, that this is something, you can't, it's not just an automatic turn on to be as Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in regards to his patience, right? It's not something easy to do. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of inherent maybe skill, but then also fortitude and determination and just getting the grit and grind of working to be patient and working on the self. And so this isn't an easy affair to try to be patient. I think any one of us in our lives knows the different kind of annoyances and troubles and whatnot that we come across on a daily basis. However, it's something to know that the greatness of it, of patience, and in addition, certainty of faith, is such that for the one who's able to don that character trait and is able to make it a part of his or herself, that he or she, whatever we fall short in terms of supererogatory worship, extra worship. Obviously, the prayer that's mentioned in this hadith is in regards to the obligatory actions. The obligatory actions still come first. However, somebody misses out in terms of supererogatory actions. Perhaps maybe they're a bit lazy, or perhaps maybe they just are busy, usually most of the time, running around the house with a lot of the kids, or they usually work long hours or what have you, and they get pretty tired. Yeah. But they're naturally individuals. He or she is naturally an individual that's predisposed to patience and expresses that throughout their day with a number of obstacles throughout their day, every single day. This is just a natural quality, whether they've built it up themselves or perhaps maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just gifted them with it. In any regard, that is something that's so rare that in essence it makes up for any deficiencies that one may have in terms of extra worship that one may have, and it kind of adds on for the individual outside of the obligatory worship. Subhanallah. And that just goes back to the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. and the great blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places within character traits and in how we are with Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how we are with the creation of His subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how we are with ourselves, and how we are in any regard, and in any place, and in any time. That when we strive to be someone, not to be a what, not to be a something, not to be the doctor that is, not to be the lawyer that, not to be the teacher that is, to be someone that others look towards, and they're the reason for the other individual being at ease and at calm and at comfort. Being someone that when others are engaging with them, that they see the beautiful characteristics of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam embodied within that person. And they want to be like that person because that person reminds them of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? To being someone like that, that is something that is magnanimous, it is great, it is azim. And it's something that we should aspire to, inshallah ta'ala, not just so that way we can skate out on supererogatory worship, no. But to recognize that the great station of these characteristic traits carry greater weight, in a sense, than anything else that we could physically do beyond the obligatory acts of worship, right? In order to raise our station with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and put ourselves in position to earn His mercy and to earn His favor subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah. Allahumma baligna dhalika. They are only given to a small number of Allah's servants, those whom He has chosen and those for whom He desires felicity and success. May He make us among them. Ameen. An effective way of increasing one's patience and any other noble quality. Alright, so the author mentions at least a little tip here, is to remember the reward that Allah has prepared for those who show patience, and likewise to reflect in every situation in which patience is required upon the end result if one shows patience and if one does not. Okay? And so to remember the reward that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared for the patient, right? And essentially that the reward of Allah, right? That's the carrot at the end of the stick for us. That's where we can place our hopes in with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's where we place our hope. In His reward, in His pleasure, in what He has promised us. Because we know that the promise of Allah is true. إِنَّهُ لَا يُخْلِفُ مِعَادٍ. Verily, He never breaks His promises. Right? And so for us, with the toil of this life and the every single day struggle and what have you, and the constant bombardment of annoyances or grief or trouble or just malaise, that it's something where we know that, okay, if I can just be like this, if I can just be patient, if I can just make sure I say kind words, if I can at the end of the road, my Lord is merciful, my Lord is kind, my Lord is loving. And my Lord, inshallah ta'ala, He has promised that if I do this, that I'm going to receive this, and I believe in the promise of my Lord. And so out of hope for that promise, I use that to motivate me to continue on, because I know that that's going to be the forever, that this is only temporal. And that takes a strong level of, goes back to the previous hadith that we mentioned, a strong level of yaqeen, certainty of faith, in order to push an individual, but nonetheless, it's something that needs to motivate us. It is something that needs to motivate us, and not something that if we're not reaching certain heights, or we're not in a place where we want to be, or we're not in a place where we think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be in any given scenario, it's not that we beat ourselves up for it, no. But still that we know that everything is under the gaze of Allah and under the gaze of His mercy, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we constantly try to put ourselves in a position to earn that mercy of Allah azza wa jal. And we use the stories that we get in the ahadith and the examples in order to keep that fire lit. That's the whole purpose of stories. Stories are to build a connection with the past in order to propel one and move one forward. If we use the past and stories and examples just to live in the past, well, then we defeat the purpose of what stories and examples and these ahadith and everything, we lose the purpose of what it's for. If we use it to live in the past, then we'll just be stuck in the past. We'll never be able to move forward in our lives. We'll never be able to move forward in this path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We'll just remain stuck behind. And we won't be able to apply it as it relates to our modern and daily life as it is right now. And so it becomes really incumbent upon us to take these examples and not just take them and say, oh, the glory days of the past. No, but to take these examples of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and say, all right, this is what he did. This is what they did. Okay, mashallah, it's beautiful. Now, what portion can I take from it so that way I can keep myself going forward on this path to God? How can I use these things so that way I can march forward and pull myself out of the mud and beautify myself with the patience that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands with فَاصْبِرْ صَبْرًا جَمِيلًا, have a beautiful patience. Right? How do I use that to keep going forward, to trench on forward, to move on forward to Allah Azza wa Jal? And so then the author moves to an example where an Arif Billah, an individual who has a unique insight with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sent his condolences to a man whose relative had died, saying, know that if you have patience, Allah's decree has been implemented and you will be rewarded. Whereas if you became agitated, Allah's decree has also been implemented and you will bear the burden of your agitation. Now, in this example here, it intertwines our aqidah. It intertwines our theology. Our theology being that the qadr, the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is unchanging. We could conspire with the entire world in order to move a rock from one corner of the room to the next, but that rock will not move from one corner to the next by us picking it up and trying to move it, what have you, unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has willed it so. Everything is under the decree, and everything is under the command, everything is under the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. Every single thing. Every single thing. It doesn't negate our free will, but there's a beautiful interaction at play with our illusion of free will and the reality of his divine command, subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to save that for a different time, inshallah. But there's a beautiful interplay between them, right? That relates to us and then Allah Azza wa Jal. But in any regard, that when we're afflicted with some kind of musibah, you could say we're afflicted with an affliction, or afflicted with some kind of calamity, or some kind of difficulty, some kind of hardship, right? That's, look, the hardship was coming anyways, right? The hardship was coming anyways. So either we can just complain and we could just kind of show disgust with it, and we could just show negative characteristics as a result from it and kind of despair or what have you. Or we could and kind of play like a hindsight 2020 kind of thing with it. Or we could show patience to whatever degree that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifts us with. We could show patience. No matter what, the affliction, the calamity, the difficulty, it's going to befall us. It's going to happen anyways. So what benefit does it make? Truly, when we really sit down and think with ourselves, what benefit does it make to have the excessive amount of anxiety that maybe we have a level of control over? Some people don't have control over more anxious elements of themselves. Some people don't have any control over it at all. But there can be a certain level of anxiety or worry or stress or grief or complaining and feeling of annoyance that we do have some control over, that we don't even realize that we have ourselves. Or maybe we do realize it, but we choose not to express it. And so it becomes incumbent upon us. Maybe not incumbent, but it becomes encouraged for us. Just say, look, if we just exercise patience, the calamity was happening anyways. But if we exercise patience, then we get with our reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's the carrot at the end of the stick. But if we engage in the other negative type characteristics or behavior, well, then we get nothing for it. And perhaps maybe we might do something that actually earns sin, that earns a transgression against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. terms of maybe something that we say that might be against something that that displeases him, or something that we do that has a negative consequence or result. And so with this individual, this individual has unique insight into the fact that, look, theology, it's going to happen either way. And so that's where we intertwine the things that we learn about Islam and divine decree and in theology, and how in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's qudra, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's power and ability over his creation, and using it in such a way, not just that it's intellectual information up here, but so that way it's information in here, in our heart, that helps us to navigate in life, and it helps us to understand the world around us and how to operate within it in a beautiful way, such as the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the righteous and the truthful ones, right? Inshallah. So the believer needs to remind himself of the merits of praiseworthy attributes, and to remember the stories of those who attained these attributes in the past. Upon hearing accounts of people's patience in the face of suffering and adversity, a believer's patience is strengthened and made firm, such that he follows their path. Right? Such that he follows their path. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. We recite it 17 at least times a day in every single prayer. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم, the path of those whom you bestowed your favor. Guide us to that straight path, the path of those whom you bestowed your favor. And so who are we talking about? We're talking about these examples and stories. We're talking about being able to move forward in our own path by learning about the path of others. Not so that way. It's not, or it's not ذكرنا عن الصراط المستقيم. It's not remind us about the straight path. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم, the path of those whom urge your faith. No, it's not just remind us of the straight path. It's ihdinas, guide us to the straight path, and that same path, so that way we may traverse it, that we may travel upon it. And we know that it's the same path of those who have earned your favor, the path of those who had already come before us, but we're using their example to push us forward, as opposed to holding ourselves back and not being able to reach the destination. Or really, we're all reaching the destination in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but not reaching it in the best of states, in the state in which causes the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or leads to his pleasure subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the Quran, Allah has narrated to us stories of his prophets and pious servants who have shown great patience. The prophetic biography likewise teaches us the patience of the Prophet ﷺ, who was a model of patience in his childhood and youth until Allah made him a messenger and a prophet. He displayed the utmost fortitude throughout his life. One example of his patience and humility is an occasion when people crowded him, such to an extent that he was pushed close to a tree. And now they're crowding him not to abuse him, they're crowding him because they want the blessings of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They want him to give to them. They need something from him, and they also want to take blessing from him and to be close in his company. And around Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you're going to want to be close to him too. But he was surrounded by a crowd of people. Unfortunately, they didn't take into account his needs at the time, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how he was feeling and his discomfort in the situation. But in any regard, that he was pushed close to a tree. His cloak became caught in the thorns of the tree and it fell off. "Give me back my cloak," he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. "If I had as many camels as there are thorns in this tree, I would have divided them between you all. Then you would not have found me miserly, dishonest, and cowardly." And then the people continued to crowd around him until he turned and said, "May Allah have mercy on my brother Musa. He suffered worse than this and remained patient." And so this hadith is narrated in Bukhari, and also the collection of Ahmed, the collection of Imam Ahmed. And so what we learn from this is that even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he internally, it wasn't. He actually said that, if I could, I would. If I had the amount of camels as there are thorns in the tree, that my cloak just fell off. Like, he didn't abuse them. No, he's saying, I wish I could just give it to you all. I wish I could just give it to you all. But even in that, he felt that he wasn't expressing the type of patience that he needed to, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in that moment, right? Now for us, we're thinking, well, I mean, how could he not? I mean, he's offering, he says that he wishes that he could give to the people even when they're in the midst of abusing him. He didn't tell them to get off of him. He didn't tell them to. He did say to give me back my cloak, but he didn't, but even still then, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we could perceive that as a very normal thing. Give me my cloak back. Thank you, please. But he sallallahu alaihi wasallam even mentioned that. Even Musa alayhi salam, and what the struggles that he had with some of the children of Israel, and some of his followers, and we all know the story of the calf, or the calf, right? Not the calf, that's cave in Arabic. The calf in English, the cow, the baby cow, right? And their worship of it, and what Musa alayhi salam, that he dropped the tablets and they broke and split. Once he discovered his people worshiping the calf when he came back from conversing with Allah Azza wa Jal, right? And so the Prophet Muhammad recognized it, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's using the example of Musa to propel him forward, to change himself going forward, even though he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, already had the perfect character in the moment, right? But he's still using that as an example for us, and so that's how we use the example of those who came before us, right? In order to propel ourselves forward instead of holding ourselves back, right? It's a reminder for us. وَذُكْرَ يَنْفَعَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, that the reminder benefits the believers. Thus it is said that the best way for the bereaved to find solace is to remember those who have suffered a similar misfortune. This will ease their suffering and help them to be steadfast. Now, this has a little bit of special caveat when it comes to bereavement and such like that. It's not that you remember that you belittle the bereavement of somebody else, right? It's not that we belittle when we bereave, when we have grief over a loss, over a misfortune of a close family member or a friend or what have you, if they pass away. It's not that we belittle the grief of another individual. It's not that we discard it and throw it to the side. Rather, it's something where we use it as solace to recognize and not feel lonely in the situation. We use it as solace to recognize that I'm not alone. Other people have felt this way. How did they get through it? I want to get through it too. We don't use it in terms of, well, my dad died too, and I was fine, or my uncle passed away, too, and I was fine, or my mother. And no, we don't belittle other people. We use opportunities of grief and sadness and personal examples that we can relate with somebody to help lift them up, not put them down. And so that's how, when it comes to exhorting somebody towards patience at the moment of grief and loss, just use to say, oh, everything's going to be okay. Look at so-and-so, they were able to. No. We say that, oh, I hope things can be okay. And if you need help in them being okay, look, I went through something similar. How can I be there for you? That's how we can utilize the people with similar misfortunes or similar losses and grief, especially in bereavement, to seek solace and to utilize patience to help one another. وَتَعَوْنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى, and mutually assist one another towards righteousness and piety. And don't belittle somebody or put them down. At the Battle of Uhud, when the Prophet ﷺ's forehead was split and his tooth ﷺ was broken, his blessed tooth, he ﷺ cupped his blood in his hand and said, I fear that if a drop of it fell on the ground, Allah would immediately bring down his punishment upon them. Allah, Allah, Allah. The companions asked him, will you not supplicate against them for what they have done? Instead of doing so, he ﷺ said, said, his forehead split, his blessed tooth is broken. And he's concerned still about the other people, not about himself. And patience in the moment. He ﷺ said, O Allah, guide my people because truly they know not. And this is collected in the collection of Ibn Hibban and Bayhaqi. Guide my people for they know not. He ﷺ displayed such a beautiful patience that he's still concerned about others, even while he's in the midst of pain. And the greater effect that his pain could have caused for others, and what the ultimate goal is, he keeps keeping his eye on the prize. He wants guidance for his people, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He didn't lose sight of that goal. even in the midst of them fighting against him, causing him pain, and in the midst of this immediate pain that's extremely difficult to deal with, broken tooth, forehead being split and blood gushing, or what have you. Even still then, he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, knows that he wants guidance for them, and so he remains patient with the misfortune, right? And still takes the opportunity to make dua for them, or to dua for them in the sense that, Allah forgive the people, for they know not what they do, right? Instead of making dua against them and acting out of the emotions at the moment, he sits down, pauses, takes a moment. What's the end goal here? The calamity happened as the knower of Allah, the one with the unique insight with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as he said. The calamity is going to happen. Either you can complain along with it, and you can engage in negative behavior, and that's just not going to benefit you. Or you can do something that benefits you and have patience. And he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did something that benefited not just him, but other people as well. He showed the patience in not letting the blood drop, and because he knows that what that would have meant for his blessed blood to drop on the ground, and what that would have meant in terms of the punishment coming from Allah Azza wa Jalla on the people. But even went a step further and made dua for them, those who are abusing him and fighting him. And what does this say? No, seriously though. What does this say about those that abuse us in a lesser form? I'm not talking about abuse of households and situations. That's a different matter. But for those of us just normal, everyday about life, we might have maybe a colleague or a boss that kind of mistreats us a little bit, maybe shows a little bit disfavor towards us. When was the last time we made dua for them? When was the last time we prayed for somebody who did us wrong? We can answer that for ourselves. SubhanAllah. Once a Jewish man, now this story, inshallah, I'm going to read through it until its end, because it's a longer story, but it's a beautiful story. And this is actually the last story that's mentioned here, the hadith story. Bismillah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inculcates us with the ability to pray for those who do wrong by us. To pray for those who do wrong by us. To pray for those who abuse us. To pray for those, we're not leaving the domestic abuse aside. Pray for those who do wrong by us, who abuse us, who show ungoodly characteristics towards us. And that He's, subhanahu wa ta'ala, gives us the ability to show patience at the times in which we are abused, at times in which we are shown misfortune, at times in which we are shown disfavor from anybody. And that we use it as an opportunity for patience to pray for the person as opposed to complaining against them. Ameen ya Rahman Rahimeen. Once a Jewish man to whom the Prophet ﷺ was in debt came to him. Even though the debt was not overdue, the man began to pull the Prophet ﷺ's cloak until his noble neck became red. Give me what you owe me, he demanded. Banu Hashim are known to be people who delay repaying their debts. And so this individual became a Sahabi. He's pulling at the cloak of Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ in such a way that it's burning his neck, right? Causing we call it rug burn or whatever you call it, on the neck of Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ, right? That hurts. And it's annoying, it's unnecessary. Especially when the debt's not even overdue. Right? It's not even overdue debt. And he's abusing him, saying, look, and then he's making fun of his, or not making fun, but he's abusing his family name. And is insulting his family name, right? And that's not even overdue. That's not becoming of just anybody, especially in that society at the time, for no reason. It's not becoming of anybody, right? Even for us nowadays, for somebody to treat somebody like this, it's unbecoming of individuals. And so Umar radiallahu anhu was standing in the gathering, and he stood up and said, give me permission to kill him, O Messenger of Allah. Umar, ever ready, mashallah. And he had his reasons. This was the khayr khalqillah, this is the best of creation. And you're treating him in this manner for seemingly no reason, right? Right? And so the Prophet ﷺ said, he and I, meaning he, the individual, the Jewish individual, and I, meaning the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, are in need of other than this behavior from you, O Omar. The Prophet ﷺ replied, instruct him to ask for what is his in a good way, and instruct me to give him his due in a good way. And know that the time for repayment has not yet come. There are 3 days left. Go, Omar, and give him what he is owed, and give him an extra 20 measures for having frightened him. Right? So not only did the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ give the man back what he owed, even though there was time left, and even though he abused him violently at the moment, but he ﷺ also gave him extra because of the response of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh, which was, especially in that time in society, an absolutely reasonable response. And really anybody who has any sense of ghira and pride over Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, if we were witnessing that in front of us, we would want to probably also, Allah knows best, right? Allah knows best. But we should have a sense of pride over our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam and come to his defense when others abuse him or others trouble him. That it's not a sign of the believer to be passive when it comes to somebody that's abusing the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We wouldn't be that way with our mother, our fathers, sisters, and brothers. So what does it say about the one who should be more beloved to us than any one of them? Right? Any one of them. And that comes as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said to Umar that verily you do not believe until you love me more than yourself. When Sayyidina Umar said that, O Messenger of Allah, verily I love you, but not more than myself, right? And then the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ informed him that that's not correct, that you need to change. And so Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu then said, okay, now I love you more than I love myself. And then the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ then said, now you got it, Ya Umar. And so we need to love the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ more than so. So we need to have that sense of defense over him when he's abused in any kind of way. And that's exactly what Umar did. But even still then, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, out of his patience and even the expression of his patience, that he gave the individual even more. And really this individual was actually testing. It comes in another narration, or this part of another narration, in which the individual was actually testing the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ because he didn't see, because he needed to see these prophetic qualities in order to confirm that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was actually the messenger of Allah, because these qualities of forbearance and patience are descriptions of the last messenger found within the previous books from amongst the people of the book. So Omar took him and gave him his due, along with an extra 20 measures. The man said to Omar, I only acted as I did because I read the descriptions of the Messenger of Allah in the Torah, and I found him all the qualities mentioned except for 2, forbearance, and that if he is treated with extreme rudeness, he only increases in forbearance. Right? So those were the 2 qualities mentioned, forbearance, and that if he's treated with extreme rudeness, he only increases. That extra 20, but that was that increase, right? He not only gave him his money back, he gave him extra because of the abuse of, or the defense of, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh. Today I have seen these 2 qualities in him, and I will now become Muslim. Give this money in charity to the Muslims. Then he went to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and said, let me take your hand to bear witness that there is nothing worthy of worship but Allah, and that you are the messenger of Allah. Okay? And so that last point really speaks to that. It's not necessarily theological debate that brings people into the religion of Islam. And I say this from personal experience. My own personal experience. But it's due to the character and the quality of others, especially in moments of difficulty, especially in moments of hardship, especially in moments of challenge. That is an individual's character and how they are that speak volumes about the beauty of Islam, that speak volumes about the necessity for me to be a part of this thing of Islam. Right? The character that we display, how we are with others, how we interact with other people, that is what gravitates people towards the religion. That is what makes people feel settled within the faith. That is what makes people see the beauty of God manifesting in the hearts of the believers. The beauty of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam expressed on their tongues, in their limbs, and in their actions. Those things are the things that gravitate people, that move people. People don't necessarily make decisions based off of what's up here. People make their decisions based off of your emotions live in your limbic system, but Johnny, we're going to say the heart. And people make decisions based off how they feel, not necessarily what they think all the time. And so it becomes incumbent upon us that no matter who we're dealing with, co-workers, friends, our colleagues, Muslim, non-Muslim, in office spaces, in the factories, in taxis, or wherever we may be and however we may be, that we keep it in mind that it is the character that we have, and specifically patience that we have with them, that is going to speak volumes to that individual, seeing the beauty of Islam in that moment. And we can either invite and push a person and propel a person towards further ibadah and worship in Islam and being a better Muslim and being more motivated within their deen and help them to practice more. Or through our character and conduct, we see another individual that they're motivated to want to learn more about Islam, or even at the very least just treat Muslims more kindly, maybe if they're non-Muslim. Or it can be a means for people to, if we don't display good character and conduct, that it becomes then a means for people to be disgusted with the religion. Needless to say, the past 20 years in the United States, and the various wars that we've engaged in, and what we've seen from certain folks and extremists, how that has dissuaded some people, right? We see the talk out there. We've seen it. But the point is that how we are can help move that needle for an individual towards Iman, towards faith, or away from faith. It's not the theological debates that we crush their life philosophy, and then they just intellectually come to the reason of Islam. No. But we get into not even a debate at all, but into a beautiful interaction of the hearts and the souls, speaking to one another, being with one another, and showing the harmony that could exist if the other party just sees the beauty of Islam, the beauty of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the beauty that Allah Azza wa Jal wants from us in any single moment. And the beauty especially in the patience, inshallah ta'ala, that we can display with other individuals, no matter who they are, no matter where they are, no matter how they are. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He enables us to display beautiful character traits, and we'll complete with the dua from the author. O Allah, make firm in us the attribute of perfect patience. Make us firm in following your magnificent Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Make us amongst those that give you your due, O benevolent, O most compassionate. May Allah bestow His blessings upon our Master Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and upon his family and companions, and all praise be to Allah, Lord of the worlds. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to endow us with those beautiful traits of patience that He allows us to utilize the example of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the righteous and the saints and the scholars and the companions and the tabi'een and the tabi'een, the Salaf Saleh, the righteous, the pious predecessors, and everybody in between from the entirety of history of Islam before, even in the time of the people of the book, the time of Sayyidina Isa, the time of Sayyidina Musa, the time of Sayyidina Ibrahim, the time of Sayyidina Adam, the time of Sayyidina Nuh, the time of Sayyidatina Maryam alayhi salam, the time of Musa alayhi salam, all of these individuals and all of these folks and all of these people and all of these groups that we take from their example to help move us forward, as opposed to just reminding ourselves of the glory days of the past. Ameen. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين آمين. بسر الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين آمين آمين. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll be seeing everybody tomorrow for the next lesson 6, inshallah ta'ala, which I believe is on forbearance. Bidnillahi ta'ala. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.